namaste. So excited to welcome you to the Zarna Garg Family Podcast. And today I have the most special episode. This is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I was recently in Calgary with Russell Peters and his brother Clayton Peters. Now, the Peters brothers are a force to reckon with in comedy. Everybody knows Russell Peters. He is the OG of South Asian stand up comedy. He's built one of the biggest touring businesses, one of the biggest comedy names in the world by far. But what you may not know is that for the last 20 years, his older brother Clayton has been managing his career, has been protecting him, and has been the brains behind developing the Russell Peters brand. And because I was in Calgary with the two Peters brothers, I shot an episode on location for the first time ever with Clayton Peters to tell us his story firsthand. I wanted to hear from him how these two brothers stayed together, built this episode, made this career happen in a cutthroat business, survived the hiccups, the bumps, all of it. I mean, two brothers working together and building something first class. It's only every mother's dream. I really hope you enjoy this episode, and I can't wait to hear your opinions, your thoughts, your favorite jokes about Russell, your favorite jokes about working with your siblings, your experiences. Tell us all about it when you're done watching this episode. Comment below in the comment section, and I'm gonna let this episode play now. Say it. He's not really thinking it through. He's not. I'm with him touring right now, and he doesn't think through anything. This guy does. See, daylight, he's awake. Where's Russell? We don't know.
He's still asleep.
Yeah, of course he is.
Yeah, he's sleeping.
And it's also a younger brother thing, would you say?
I'd say.
Yeah,
He's
right?
got the freedom to do that.
Yeah, all young ones. That's how it is. Were you always the responsible one?
I was. I was because we grew up in Toronto, and we were working class immigrants, and both our parents worked, and we lived in the city. And so one of the things that it fell upon me to do was to take him to and from school.
Oh.
So,
You had to take Russell to and from school?
yeah.
Oh my God, that's a job right there.
It wasn't too bad. I was 9, and we were taking public transit, which I think a lot of people would probably not think about putting their kids on public buses and things like that now at the age of 9.
Yeah.
But I was responsible for him. I'd take him to kindergarten.
How old was he when you were 9?
So this is 74. So he was 4.
Oh, wow.
He was 3 or 4.
That's a lot of responsibility for a 9-year-old.
I guess I just had it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
It's the immigrant way.
It's the immigrant way. We had no choice, right? Mom and Dad had to go to work.
Yeah.
And so it fell on me. And that's ultimately, if you look at the longevity of our relationship, brother since he was born, but that's kind of where it starts. This taking care of, this sense of obligation goes all the way back to that, right?
And would you say to this day you kind of take care of him?
I kind of do.
Kind of do,
I
right?
kind of do.
So the whole purpose behind this episode for me is that my brand is family. You know me. It's all about the family, the husband, the kids, the mother-in-law. The mother-in-law also, we're trying to exit her out, but like it's
I
not
have a
happening.
great mother-in-law. I just want to be clear about that.
Oh, do
best.
we? We're going to get into
Yeah,
it.
she's
We're
the
gonna
best.
Of course she's the best. As he's saying that, he's like, she's the best. But we'll find out. But it's all about the family. And the reason that I wanted to do this podcast episode with you, and I was dying to do it, is you and your brother have built one of the biggest South Asian comedy brands, the biggest comedy brand, period, of all time. He's one of the biggest touring acts in comedy. And you built it together. You manage his work. How many years have you been managing him?
So we're coming up on 20 years together.
20 years of working together, the two brothers. Like, I just want to know all the secrets so my two boys will work together. The girl, whatever, she's going to just hopefully marry well. But the boys, how did you do it? How is it that you didn't fight and punch each other and like walk away?
A lot of people ask us that question, and a lot of people are actually, we've had a lot of comedians, we've had a lot of entertainment people who've said, I wish I had that relationship with my brother. But it doesn't make any sense to me that I would be assaulting my brother. Okay, so a lot of people say, oh, my brother used to hit me. Doesn't he beat you up? Didn't you beat him up when he was a kid? It makes no sense to me that I would do that. And I wasn't programmed that way.
But
I
it's
wasn't
not a
wired that
sense
way.
thing. Weren't you just like, didn't he just say stupid things all the time and you like want to just whack him?
No, I mean, he was 6 years younger. I guess I always had that understanding of him. I think when we got into our teens and we kind of drifted apart a little bit. So, I'm 18 and he's 12, right? And I'm going out to clubs and dating, and I've got the circle of friends, and I'm doing stuff. And at that
Because you have
point,
white friends, I'm assuming.
I had white
Yeah,
friends. Yeah,
that's why.
white.
That's why clubs.
Yeah.
Brown kids, it's not for you.
So white. Actually, it was a mix. It was mixed. It was white, Italian, Jamaican, Trinidadian, Filipino. All of these communities were all part of my core group at that time,
The
and they're also
parents
part
of
of
the
his.
Filipino kids crying right now.
No, it was great. It was the best thing I could have asked for, was having all those different people around me.
Okay.
But at that age, when I'm 18, and he's just like that little annoying brother. At that point, you're just
Right.
like, all right, get away from me, kid. Get out of here.
Right.
But he had his own thing going on because he was also very social. He was very, very social. He was very outgoing, and I was always more reserved. So it just, both of our personalities kind of blended together as he got older.
Yeah.
And I'm still going to clubs into my 20s, and then I start to see my brother at the club.
But with his people, not
his
with
people,
you.
With his people, but I knew all his people because we all grew up, around
together.
each other.
Right.
So there's just there's that limbo period in your teens where you kind of drift apart, and then you come back in your 20s. It's kind of like with parents and children. When they're teenagers, they're kind of sullen and insular, and they don't talk, and they're monosyllabic, and then they get into their 20s, and all of a sudden, they suddenly realize the value of the parents that are in front of them. Hopefully, they do.
Yeah,
Right? And they develop
I'm
that
waiting for
relationship.
my kids to have any realization. But
Your kids
okay.
are the best.
Oh, that's other people always think that about other people's kids. Just so you know that. But can we dial back a minute for a second? So, even though you had a sibling relationship, back then he's doing his thing, you're doing your thing. Is there something that kept you guys close together? Both your parents were working. They're immigrant. They were immigrants to Canada.
Yeah, they came to Canada in 1965.
So was it a lot of the two of you watching out for each other?
It was.
In a very traditional Indian way?
It was, but it was also, there were circumstances that brought us even closer. So in Toronto, we lived in Toronto until 74. 75, we moved from Toronto to Brampton. My dad took a job in Brampton. And when we moved to Brampton is when we first experienced racism.
Oh.
Okay, so in the city itself, we never experienced any kind of racism at all.
Right, because Toronto, big city.
Big city, very multicultural. We lived in an area that was primarily Portuguese and Italian. And we're
So
kind
you're
of...
the best ones there, like.
We're top of the food chain. And Eastern European. And we're kind of ethnically ambiguous at that time, if you want to call it that.
Well, also
right?
the name Peters.
Peters,
It's kind
but-
of just blend. It's not screaming Indian.
But if a racist sees you on the street, he's not trying to drill down on your ethnicity or anything like that.
Right.
So we didn't realize that we were different until we moved to Brampton. And then when we moved to Brampton, we rode the wave that came out of the UK of being called Paki.
Oh.
Okay, and the Paki is like our N-word. Okay, and it came over from England, where they were having a lot of trouble with the economy, union strikes, and a wave of immigration that they were pushing back against. And then that, because Canada's very connected to the UK, we started to get that in Brampton. And also, Brampton was a primarily white bedroom community. So we were the first
Really?
wave. Yeah.
That's shocking to me.
Why?
I don't know. It feels like Brampton is so Indian, but that's
Well,
today.
we were the tip of the spear. We were the tip of the spear. Now I kind of see what they were all a little bit afraid of. But at that time, they were like, "What is this? What are these people coming in here and doing?" And so, it was very overt. It was in our face. It's not sort of perceived safety feelings or things like that. We were spit on. We were knocked down, and our houses were vandalized. You couldn't walk through the mall without somebody calling you Paki or yelling Paki across the way, or guys would, shoulder you as you came by.
Hold on, these are Canadians?
Canadians.
I thought Canadians were nice people.
They're lovely people. They work
What
really,
just-
really hard. I have to say, what I'll say is that Canadians work very, very hard to be decent people. Okay, but at that time, the values were different, and the fear level of these new faces was different. And every community that immigrates to North America goes through these phases. It was the Irish, it was the Italians, it was the Jews, it was everybody. As these various waves of immigration come through, they all have to deal with some kind of pushback. And so at that time, moving into that white suburban community, we had to deal with it. And it was compounded by what came over from the UK. And it was aggressive. It was at school. It was in our face. And my brother, at the age of now 4 going on 5, just riding his bike down the street, the guy down the street turns his garden hose on him and calls him a Paki. So not to get too much, but if you want to talk about the root of where my brother's comedy comes from,
Yeah.
it comes from dealing with that traumatic event. That was the key event in his life where suddenly he was told he was different. Suddenly he was told that he was less than. And he's still, all of his exploration of race and culture comes from that moment in time, and dealing with that racism and sense of otherness and sense of being less than because of that incident and because of all the incidents that took place in that key moment in his life. And he was very young. Obviously, when you're 4 or 5 years old and somebody's like an adult is being aggressive towards you, you're just like, what's going on? Like, what did I do?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, at 4 or 5, you're not even like processing anything, I'm
No.
assuming. Yeah.
Sorry.
And you would you hear about this from him?
So I was experiencing it as well
Right.
when I would go to the house, but I was now coming into like 10, 11, 12 years old. I was also going through, early puberty and all that kind of thing.
Right.
So what was happening was I was constantly having to come out and fight. Okay. So we had to learn how to fight. Okay. So we both
Actually fight, like
actually
not
fight.
like metaphorically
Yeah,
learn
no,
to fight.
and like a lot of kids now, they talk about racism or feeling unsafe or triggers and things like that. But we actually had it in our face at that time, and that's what we had to deal with. And I think it made us tougher. It made us better at who we are, and it made us closer, right? Because that continued for him for a long time because he was small. He was small, meaning like he was slight. He was a small, skinny kid. He could be a little mouthy. He could be a little precocious. Okay. And so things were happening for him. And so I was not constantly, but a lot of times coming to his aid. But what I'll tell you about that, which affects me to this day, is now my son is 10, 11 years old.
Right.
When he goes out of the house to ride his scooter or ride his bike, so he's now at that stage where he's kind of going out on his own. So he goes out in these half-hour intervals close to the house. We know where he is on his own. But I still have a bit of a trauma response in my mind that I keep expecting him to come through the front door crying.
Oh.
And I only realized it, honestly, this is like really new that it sort of came into my head that I suddenly realized like I have a bit of a spot where I'm waiting, like at a high alert, where I'm waiting for him to like, my son's going to come in crying. Because that's what happened to my brother. And so I still kind of carry that with me. I know it's a little bit deep and stuff,
but deep is good.
But this
We
is
wanna
what
hear.
this is how these things affected me.
Listen, like I'm almost tearing up because I have 2 boys and I know what it is like to be scared, and I know when one is scared of the other one, especially the older one. Mine too. My older one takes care of my little one, so I know. And right now I'm feeling a certain kind of way in my heart because to think that as a grown man you still have that, like it's immediately making me think of what all my son might feel 20, 30, 40 years from now when he has kids of his own.
Yeah, I mean, these things are sort of connective tissue in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So, I have a relationship with my son that is very similar to my relationship with my brother.
Yeah.
It's all, I can lie down on the couch and talk about it if you
Yeah,
want. You actually take the seat and take a notepad.
That's
and
an
take
almost
notes.
therapy session that I charge money for, but we can do that for the Patreon crowd.
Patreon. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
So I still have that sort of built-in response, and I have a unique relationship with my son, which is very similar to the relationship I have with my brother.
Right.
And we were at the movies 2 years ago, and we were walking hand in hand, walking to the movie theater, and we were just kind of jibber-jabbering back and forth. And I suddenly realized in that moment that it was like my son was 8 at the time. There's a 6-year age difference between my brother and I. And in that moment, I was 14.
Yeah.
Okay? I was 14, and I was with my little brother.
Now, just to inform our audience, your son is your wife is white.
She's a white.
So she's a very beautiful, nice white lady.
With crazy, stupid taste in men. Yeah.
Yes.
Very strange.
And your son looks white, would you say?
Yeah, he presents as
So
white.
it's not like in theory, he should not be getting attacked for his race. Maybe
No.
for other things, because
No.
kids will find all kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we live in a very safe neighborhood, a very safe area, upper middle class area, where we live. So there's no this fear, this memory it's unrelated to anything that is tangible in our universe. It's not like he's going to get attacked for his race or anything like that. It's a completely safe area that we live in. It's not going to happen, but there's still a part of my brain that's on alert and preparing to leap out. My office is in the basement, getting up and running out and having to deal with somebody who's done something to my son.
Yeah.
Even though the chances of it happening are less than 0.0001%.
Right.
Right. But I still carry that thing.
Yeah. No, I get it. And you are really your brother's caretaker. I've seen you guys in action. We've worked together on many shows, and I see you watching out for him constantly behind the scene. Like from little things like what is he gonna eat to is the set ready for him? Are the cameras ready? This is all. Do you ever feel envious?
No.
No?
No.
Did you never want to be on the stage yourself and
No.
be like, you take care of me for
No.
a change?
No, I was always a reserved kid because of the 6-year age difference. I spent 6 years of my life alone, right? And I was always quiet. I used to draw. I was painting. I was an artist as a child. And I like to keep to myself,
Right.
right? And he is the one who's always been out there, right? He used to dance, DJ, joke around. He had a lot of big circle of friends. I was always a bit of a loner. And so we've never, one of the reasons that our relationship works is because we're not competing with each other.
But how? Because like if you think of sibling rivalry is a thing.
It's definitely
Like
a thing.
there's so many siblings who would be like, why should I care for him? He doesn't care for me. Why do you not have that?
It just doesn't make sense to me. It's not in my wiring to think that way.
What about him?
No,
Is there a part of him that's like...
If anything, I can't speak for him on that front, but if anything, I'm sure there's days where he wishes that he didn't have to be front and center, where he didn't have to go on stage, although he loves it and that's what feeds him.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's days where it's just
It's a lot of responsibility.
It's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I get all the perks without any of that stuff. My responsibilities are elsewhere. Right? I still, fly, first class. We stay at great hotels. We get all the luxury treatments. You know what it's like. You're a big star. You're a big star now. Right?
I'm trying to learn, but
so I get all the perks, and I don't have any of that kind of pressure.
For my mother-in-law watching, I fly economy. Sometimes I buy the bathroom seat, which is half off, and you just sit in the bathroom. It happens. Some airlines will do it. Just don't put ideas out there.
She knows.
Yeah,
she knows.
She's like watching every expense.
She's
of
taking
mine.
notes.
Yeah, of course she's taking notes. So this is them. But coming back to you, so be honest, no sibling rivalry.
No.
None.
No,
Like if he gets a big endorsement deal or something, you don't look at it and be like, what the am I not getting this?
Because he's who he is. That's the
Bleep
reason he's
the
getting
F
it.
word out, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if he gets a $2 million deal, I make 10%.
Right.
What do I have to complain about? I'm my brother's keeper. That's my job.
Right.
And
no, I can think of things to complain about.
But if my brother is doing well and he's successful, that's what feeds me. Right. That's my job. And I'm not exactly suffering on the other side. I'm not exactly getting like scraps off the table. I'm doing very, very well. Right. So if he's successful, I'm successful.
Okay, let's go back to how you guys made the decision to start working together. Because it was not always like that, right? He was doing his thing and you had your career.
Yeah.
And so what led to the two of you saying we should do this together?
Well, I was working in oil and gas. And let me go back a little further.
Go back and tell us,
so
because as a mother, you should know this. Every mother watching this is like, how can I make it so my kids work together and are build something big together? This is a dream. When we see siblings, and there's a few sibling pairs in the world that have really hit it big, like you guys have, and we're always so curious. What is it that brought you there? So tell us everything.
Well, we've got, first of all, within the family, we have good examples because my father had very strong relationships with his siblings. With his sister and his brother, he was very close. My mother was very close to her brothers.
Got it.
Okay, so we saw that was something that's the norm, okay? And I think all through the childhood, because of the fact that I was taking care of him, taking him to school, when we'd get home from school, we were what were called latchkey kids. Right?
Yeah.
So we'd let ourselves in. I'd make him something to eat until mom got home, and then we had the proper dinner after that. So that was also ingrained in me.
What did you make him to eat, just out of
Oh,
curiosity?
macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, easy
Or
stuff.
wieners and beans, or just hot dogs. You know,
Right.
the normal
Okay. Got
stuff
it.
that you can make within about 20 minutes
Got it.
with minimum, you know.
That's
Yeah.
a lot of responsibility on a young kid. Just to say,
It didn't feel that way.
because it's one thing to make it for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but like now you got to make it and feed the kid. That feels like a lot.
No, it wasn't.
Okay,
It
but
was easy.
anyway,
Yeah,
so
I know.
you would take care of him, make it for him.
Make it for him. So we had the parents, we saw their relationships, and my mom and dad also said, listen, one day we're not going to be here, and you'll just have each other. All right, so you guys are going to have to like figure this out. You're going to have to look after each other. And that also stuck with me and with him. Then we got in the situation where we both experienced racism and conflict, and then I became even more territorial or protective of him, which I'll digress for a second. As a manager and the person looking after his business is still very much ingrained in me as well. So, you know, he will openly accuse me of being overprotective when it comes to strangers coming into our world or business relationships. And he's like, you know, you can relax. Not everyone's trying to, you know, destroy us or take us down. But that overprotective thing comes from seen him go through that trauma at that time.
Right,
Now, you can also say if he didn't go through that, then he wouldn't be who he is today.
right.
Right? But that, again, that memory, that thing is still inside me to say, okay, I have to be really careful and protective of him, because he's also extremely open. Everyone's his new best friend.
Oh,
Everybody is
about
his new
this.
best friend.
Yeah.
Right? Our
And
friend
you
Amir.
mean everybody?
Yeah,
Yes.
like Amir, I'm
Our
not surprised.
podcast editor.
Amir's going to be staying at his house in Malibu soon. I can tell you that now. Next time he goes to LA, he'll be staying at the house in Malibu, because that's my brother. Oh, you need a place to stay? Come on over.
Yeah.
Right? So that's
You
that's,
actually mean it, because you were once telling me the story about how somebody came to deliver TVs to his house and then they ended up staying.
Yeah, when he first moved to LA, he had a place on Cahuenga. And I was with him at Best Buy, and that was the sort of early days of buying the big flat screen TVs and everything. And, you know, it's our first flush of cash, and he's moving to LA. And so I was with him at the Best Buy, and he was buying the TVs and the fridge and all that stuff. Went back to Canada, came back 2 weeks later, walk into his living room, and there's like 3 Mexican guys sitting on the sofa. And I'm like, who is that? And he's like, well, you remember, you know, Jesus, Jesus, Raul, Jose, you remember them from Best Buy? I go, what? And he goes, yeah, the guy who sold me the TV, and he installed it. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, what are they doing here? Yeah, they're my friends.
Okay.
So much like his 8-year-old self,
Yeah.
at his 53-year-old self is exactly the same guy.
Right.
Right? So you know how your kids, they go out, they ride their bikes, suddenly there's a knock at the door, and you've got like 3 other kids in behind them, and you're like, well, who's this now? And the first thing is, oh, these are my friends.
Yeah.
Same kid then, same adult now, right? And so that openness kind of scares me a little bit, because I'm
Yeah.
much more guarded. I'm much more like, I don't know this person. We'll see how this thing goes, right? So that overprotective thing comes into that as well, because he's just so open to everybody.
And in business as well, as you're
Yes.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to protect the business.
Yeah, no, I can see that, because it's, you know, they say don't mix business and family, don't mix your emotions with it. But how do you not, especially because the history that you two had together?
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to separate the two.
Yeah.
And when we first started working together, the hardest thing for us to do, well, not the hardest thing, but one of the things we had to learn was how to be brother and client.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because we knew how to be brothers, but we
Right.
had never done this before,
Right.
right? So that was a little bit of a learning curve,
Right.
right? We had to figure this out. That was probably the trickiest thing that we had to deal with, was how's this going to work?
Right. What were the early challenges? Anything that you can remember?
Yeah, one of the first challenges, we first of all, we were sort of breaking all the rules in terms of comedy and touring, and we were told by people that we couldn't do what we wanted to do. So we wanted to do a Canadian tour on our own,
Okay.
right? And we weren't at that time. Comedy touring was, I mean, it was happening. Obviously, comedians were touring, but it wasn't like a thing that you just did. You needed a Just for Laughs behind you, or there was no Live Nation at that time even.
Oh, wow.
Right? They didn't even exist. They were just coming in. They were Clear Channel developing this live entertainment arm. There was CPI, which eventually all became one. And so we were like, no, I think we can do this. And this was in the early days of data mining. So people like Dane Cook were harvesting names and email addresses, and we looked at them, and there are people who were doing things on their own, like Master P, who was self-producing his albums and making them himself and distributing them himself. So it was sort of a period where people were kind of taking charge of their own thing. And I said, I think we can do this. He's like, yeah, I think we can do this. And everyone told us we couldn't. So when we launched that first tour, I said, listen, we have to do a press day to let people know what we're doing.
Right.
Because that was the days of newspaper. That was the days of radio.
Yeah.
That was the days of, watching the evening news. And that was the only way to kind of get your message out. It was still internet, but it was still early days of internet marketing and things like that. So we sort of set up these press days, and he was very, very hostile to the press.
Oh, okay. Okay, younger brother, thank you for making it harder.
And it was hard.
Right?
it was super hard because I'd set up, similar to what we're doing here, we'd take a hotel, we'd take a room, and we'd have them come through to promote this tour, and people were interested because he'd started to generate a little bit of buzz around him. Mm-hmm. And he was hostile, and I said, like, what's wrong with you? Like, he's like, no, again, you can believe, so it's like, those guys, 6 months ago, they didn't want to talk to me. Now all of a sudden they all want to talk to me and they're all interested in me. Screw them. I'm not talking to them. I said, yeah, but we're trying to do something else here. So he's very standoffish, very hostile. Excuse me. And that was one of the things that we had to kind of work through, was this whole thing about doing press and doing media, to the point where here we are almost 20 years later from that time, where I don't push him to do any press at all because it only leads to conflict. Because he still hates doing it. I mean, most artists do hate doing it, but he still has sort of that like, ugh, do I have to do this? And as you know, when interviewers are asking questions, it's a lot of times the same question. Tell us about what we can expect. What can we expect on your new tour? That type of thing. So to this day, that's a touchy one for us. But that was sort of the initial conflict, if you want to call it that. And the other thing that happened in that first wave of success in 2005, 2006, 2007, was that people started treating him differently. So friends who he'd known for 40 years, all of a sudden they're treating him differently.
Right.
They're starting. They're asking for money.
Oh, I didn't see that coming.
No, right from the beginning.
For what?
They knew that we had like a development deal and we had all kinds of things and we were touring and they knew that money was coming in. So there was that, and then just started treating him differently. Even our own family members, like, listen, we're not going to treat you differently now that you guys are a big success. We're like, nobody asked anybody to do that. So in that initial wave came all of this kind of disorienting stuff, and he was dealing with that, and that was disorienting for him. And at one point, I remember he said, "Look, I'm just going to go back to playing clubs. I don't need all this shit."
Yeah.
And I said, the genie's out of the bottle. We can't put it back in.
Right.
We're on this path now, and we've just got to learn to deal with it. So in the early days, those were some of the things that we had to.
Did you have to be the bad cop? Like if like a relative came up to him and said, "I want the money." Mm-hmm. I don't know. Knowing Russell, he may have just given it, but did you ever have to be like, I need to step in and be the guy who, but you're also dealing with your relatives. It's not just Russell's relatives.
Well, yeah. I mean, the relatives were not too bad.
Or friends, close friends.
But friends, here's the thing. They're his friends.
Right.
Okay.
Oh.
They're his friends who are going directly to him.
Mm-hmm.
It was very rare that I would sort of intercede in something like that because that's on him.
Right.
Right. But if it did sort of come through me, then yes, I would have thrown down the gauntlet. I don't mind being the bad guy. I don't mind having to say no because, as you know, as an entertainer, right?
Yeah.
You're in the people-pleasing business.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't want to say no.
No.
Right?
You're scared to say no.
You're scared to say no. Because you also, part of your persona and his persona and most entertainers' persona, this people-pleasing thing is you don't want anyone to not like you.
Yeah. No, you're addicted to that.
You're addicted to the liking and the positive reinforcement and the positive affirmations that you get. Oh, we love you. We love your work. We love your family. We love, love, love. And then the moment somebody says, you're a dick, you're like, that's what you're going to focus on for the next, next X number of days afterwards. So that's all tied in together. So when people are asking you for things, you're giving them things because also you don't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah, no. But can we just pause for a minute? Mm-hmm. Because we still didn't answer the question of why you two decided to work together. Right. I think we got a little sidetracked.
We did.
Because you had a corporate job.
I did.
And he was doing his comedy thing.
Yeah.
He always only did the comedy thing. That was his thing.
No, he did comedy. He also was a DJ.
Right. I mean, the entertainment. Like,
Yeah.
he never had a corporate job.
No, he drove a forklift. He sold shoes at Aldo. He worked in retail. He worked in restaurants and kitchens. He did a lot of different things as he was coming up, and that's actually a lot of that has to do with our dad. Sort of like, this is comedy fomedy. Like, what is this, all this
Of
rubbish?
course. I'm
really?
sure your dad was like,
Yeah.
get a job.
He was. He was cool. He was like, because our dad was into comedy,
Yeah.
and he was cool, but at the same time, he was kind of, look, you need a backup,
Right.
right? Like any parent.
So what was it that made you two say to each other, we need to work together?
Well, so there was a sequence of events, and we've always, if you look back on our history, everything has been a catalyst for the next thing. And so our dad passed in March of 2004. And Russell's special, the one that launched him, the Somebody Gonna Get a Hurt thing,
Yeah.
aired in February of 2004, exactly 1 month to the day from when Dad passed.
Oh, wow.
Before he passed.
So your dad just
He saw
it.
the special.
Right.
My mom was watching the special, and she was laughing, and my dad jokingly said to her, "You really like this guy, don't you? You think he's funny?" Which was cute.
That's
It's
so cute. Yeah.
Dad passed 1 month to the day later. I was still working my corporate on his deathbed, not to get too melodramatic.
No, get melodramatic.
On his
My
deathbed,
audience
he
wants
literally
to hear
said
it.
to me, he says, "Listen, look after your brother. I'm worried about him."
Oh.
Okay? So literally on his deathbed, he's like, "Look after your brother." But it wasn't in the context of us working together. That was never anything we even dreamed of. But it was more like, look out for your brother, which I'd always been doing anyway.
Right.
Right? So that kind of stuck with me. I was in this corporate job that I hated. I've always been a square peg in a round hole in these corporate environments that I was in. I used to come in late. I didn't like following anyone's rules. I'd work hard, okay? And one of the things was I would break the rules, but then I'd work harder than anybody, right? And so it was kind of like, I'm gonna do this for myself, and I'm gonna give you all of this other stuff. And I would work till 8 o'clock at night. It didn't bother me. I just didn't like getting up early in the morning.
Right.
I didn't like being there at 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and it was always conflict. I can think of every meeting, every corporation I worked for where I'd have that sit down with my boss. It's like, "Peters, why can't you be here at 8:30? And this is the days before work at home even existed.
Yeah.
This was before flex time. None of that existed. And I was trying to push it through. I was ahead of my time on that one. Anyway, I hated the job I was in. I had some political issues internally, and his stuff was starting to go like this.
Right.
And I was analyzing it. So I was staying at work late, and I was looking at what these initial gigs in the US were, and I went on a couple of them with him, and I could see sort of strategically what was wrong, or logistically what was wrong or wasn't working. And then I was just getting so fed up with my job, I kind of waited till I got my bonus. I got my bonus on a Friday, and we had talked about this, and I waited for the check to clear, and I resigned on the Monday. And the conversation we had was, he's like, "Well, he's like, I know you hate this job. Why don't we go work together?" I said, "Okay." He goes, I'm like, what are you thinking? And he goes, "You can be my assistant." I said, "Hang on a second. I've run companies for people.
Yeah.
I've lived all over the world. I've had some really good gigs. I'm not going to be your assistant and pick up your dry cleaning and get you coffee."
Right.
I said, "What about manager?" He goes, "Oh yeah, manager. Okay, let's do that."
Also, it would be a waste of your talent.
Yeah, I think so.
Right, of
Yeah,
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he probably wasn't thinking it through because he's a younger brother, and he's everybody's his assistant.
Yeah, they are now. So that's kind of how it started.
Wow.
And then we just went from there. My first trip to LA was in July of 2005.
Did you, when you two made the decision to work together, did you discuss it with your family? Did you have to get your mom's permission?
No.
Was that like a
No,
thing?
we were grown-ass men who lived in our own house together. We lived together.
You two lived in one house together.
We owned a house together.
Was your mom with you?
No, she was at her place.
Okay.
Yeah. Same house that she's lived in then, same house she lives in now.
So you two were single guys living together
Yeah,
at the time?
we bought a townhouse together. We lived together. Even before we started doing this thing, we used to talk on the phone every day together.
Did you guys, when you started working together, was there ever a time when your mom was like, "Russell, you should watch out for Clayton too"?
I think, she never really got involved. I'll put it this way. When we first did the Air Canada Centre, okay, we did 2 shows back to back, and we had over 16,000 people per night in our hometown. Never been done before. No comic had ever sold it out like that, let alone a hometown boy, let alone a kid from Brampton, working class immigrant son, Indian. Never happened. Never been done before. So, Ma, we're doing this. Okay. do you want Mrs. Harris and I to make some sandwiches for backstage? So instead of catering, she wanted to make the egg salad sandwiches, the little, the little triangular ones, and the tuna salad sandwiches for backstage. I said, well, no, Ma, we're going to have it catered. Yeah, but we can make sandwiches for everyone. I'm like, no, you don't understand like what's happening here. So that was kind of her thing on it. And in the tour that preceded the arena shows, when we were doing theaters around Toronto and across Canada here in Calgary, where we are now, she would come to some of those shows and she would sell the merch.
Oh.
Yeah.
So cute. Did people even know it was your mother?
They started to recognize her. They started to recognize her because I think she had done a cameo in one of his specials.
Yeah.
And there'd been a couple of small like news items and documentary things where she was on camera. So people still recognize her to this day.
This is like the classic immigrant situation, isn't it? It's like she just kind of got involved.
Yeah.
She didn't sit back and be like, this is my son's thing.
No, she was in there.
Yeah.
She was in there. And, she's, I didn't like that guy who opened. He was too dirty. Or I didn't like this. Or, she would tell us what she liked and didn't like.
Yeah.
And, our dad had just passed, so she had a lot of free time. And she was there with us on quite a few of the tours. And she's actually, when we've toured in India, she's come with us.
Yeah.
We've taken her uncles on tour from India with us just to come and hang out. Check this out. This is pretty cool. You should see what this is like.
So you two started working together, and you were managing him, and a lot of it, in his case, because he does so much touring, it's a lot of logistics. It's a lot of actual tour. You have to tour with him.
Yeah,
that changes your whole trajectory of your life.
I was single at the time,
right?
So it was fine. It was rock and roll. Right. I'm going to countries that I never imagined I would get a chance to go to.
What was your funnest tour with him back in the day, or even up to now?
You know what? The funny thing is, as it was happening, it was coming at us so fast that as it's happening, you don't get to enjoy it.
Right.
Right. You do a playback 6 months later, a year later, or decades later, even in our case.
Yeah.
And I can remember, like playing in Calgary and then taking a bus. We chartered a bus to take us up the highway to Edmonton to do the next show. But not really knowing how the bus rental. So we took one of these like limo bus things, and it was winter-ish. So we were going up the highway, but the door wouldn't close properly. So it was freezing inside, and we were all bundled up with these coats pulled over our head. Things like that.
Yeah.
You remember chartering planes before we knew how to charter a plane properly. The first time we chartered one out of Toronto, after doing the Air Canada shows, we chartered the cheapest plane we could get, which turned out to be like a medical evacuation type plane. And so it was so small that it was such a small tube that I have a picture of the three of us sitting at the back of the plane, my brother in the middle, my wife, and one of our friends. And they're kind of curved in like this, sleeping, because you couldn't sort of sit three people upright. Only the person in the middle could sit upright. And one of our security guys is sitting on the porta potty. You talk about your toilet seat. He had it. He actually sat on it.
I told you it was a thing.
He actually sat on it over there, and the other guy sat over there. And we were just like, hey, this is pretty cool, right? Yeah. Stopping for fuel in Winnipeg at dawn. You remember all those kind of early day things. And the business just kept coming at us. It was like a freight train, and there was no time to think. If I talk about regrets, I should have built out a management business. I should have taken on other clients. I should have hired young guys to manage other people. And I regret not doing that now. But ultimately, everything was coming at us so fast.
Right. I mean, exactly. It's like, the thing is that had you done all that, could you have managed him as well as you did? No. It's like something's got to give, right?
Yeah.
And I think your heart, because you're his brother, it's like that gravitational pull towards doing the right thing for him first and foremost, I'm guessing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have a strong gravitational force to each other. The funny thing is we're very similar. We will say the exact same thing at the exact same time.
Wow.
We'll walk into a room wearing the exact same thing at the exact same time. And then all of a sudden we're the same, and then we go like this. Right? Now I'll go straight, but his is like this, and mine is just a straight line this way.
Yeah.
Right? And we're completely different.
I mean, speaking of which, you've been married for a long time.
Yep, 17 years, yeah.
To Emma.
Yep.
Just to Emma.
The white woman, the white woman.
The
I
very
married.
nice white lady.
Yes.
But Russell has had a little bit of an adventurous
Yes.
personal life.
Yes. Very adventurous.
Right. Did you ever, as a big brother, want to be like, slap him and be like, what
All
are
the
you
time.
doing?
All the time.
Why are you dating this person?
You hit the key phrase.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
That is the phrase that comes up more than anything else in our relationship. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
And
like,
what does
when he buys, when, in the real heyday, when, cash was just coming in like crazy, the question's like, oh, I bought this Porsche. Oh, I bought this Lamborghini. I'm like, what are you doing? That was the key phrase.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And so I know that I live, that my voice exists in his head somewhere.
Yeah.
I am the voice in his head. So a lot of times when these purchases take place or when he does something stupid, I know that he waits a little bit before I find out about it.
Oh, of
Okay.
course. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like many siblings that hide, like,
Yeah. Yeah. There's the sin of omission. And so a lot of times it's he will he'll wait before I find out about these things because I know he's feeling a little bit guilty and he goes, I know my brother's going to be like, what are you doing? Right? So that's a big part of our relationship. And also we both have very bad tempers. So we both manage those tempers by not unloading on each other. Okay?
How?
We just do.
You do.
I think as men.
You don't just explode on him
No,
and be
because
like,
I
I'm
think-
going to punch you right now.
No, because first of all, he's got a purple belt or whatever in jiu-jitsu. So he's going to knock me out. Right. Number one, which he would never do.
Right.
But I think we because we both have these tempers, we know that we can't unload on the other one. Okay. And I know that.
But that's a lot to control. I mean, a lot of times we all know we shouldn't, but that's the whole problem with being temperamental is that you just.
Yeah, I
Right?
mean, he's had his moments, that's for sure.
Right.
Right.
So
He's definitely had his moments.
You have this feeling. How do you control it?
I just internalize it.
You walk away from
I'll
each
eat
other.
my feelings. That's why I
But-
gained 140 pounds ago. I ate my feelings.
Yeah,
And,
we're all eating our feelings
yeah.
or drinking them.
Yeah.
But was there ever a period where you disagreed and you're like, I'm not going to talk to you?
Yeah.
I'm done talking to you.
Yeah, we've had actually we had one major falling out last year, which is saying something. That for the
Right.
first time in our entire lives, we didn't talk to each other for 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was a big deal. And the funny thing about that was, obviously we were upset about it, but the people in our universe were more upset about it.
Yeah.
It's almost like, wait a minute, if you guys aren't talking,
Yeah.
the whole world, there's something not right with the world right now. And people were very upset by it, to the point where when we reconciled, which was a very brotherly reconciliation, where I'm thinking of coming to the show in California, in Sacramento. Okay. Then a couple of days before the show, he says, are you still coming? Oh, yep. I goes, okay. I got to the show. It was the afternoon. It was a casino show. And so I said, well, let me go see him now before the show. I don't want to have an awkward reconciliation backstage.
Right.
So I knocked on his bedroom door. He goes, hang on. I came in. He was stark naked. He was going in for a shower.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We hugged each other.
Okay.
And that was it. And then I said, what are you wearing? He goes, I'm wearing this shirt. I go, it's crushed. I go, I'll iron it for you. Go take a shower. And that was it. And we handled it like men. My wife was very upset by it.
Yeah.
Because she goes, you didn't discuss the problem? I said,
Yeah.
no.
No.
You didn't talk it through? No.
No.
I said, we handled it like men. We didn't talk about it. But we moved forward. And that's, yeah. That was
Okay,
it.
hold on. So during that period when you two were fighting in silent
Yeah,
war mode,
yeah.
sounds more like a Cold War.
Cold War, yeah.
Right? Did your mom ever get involved?
Very upset. I'm very upset by the whole thing.
Of course.
Yeah.
Did she say anything to you, to him? What was she doing?
She was running back and forth. If we were sending messages to each
Through
other,
her.
it would go through mom.
Oh, of course.
Right? Even now, if we're annoyed with something, the message will go through mom. I'm like, Ma, you know what he did? Da-da-da. Oh, okay. And then I know, she's like, why did you do this? And so we do kind of use mom as the UN now and then to negotiate on our behalf. But for the most part, I mean, we've been doing it for so many years together. What I do, I as long as I'm doing what I'm doing, and we get to the show and he's on stage, my work is, I've done my job.
You've done the job.
Because once he gets on stage, as you know,
Yeah.
doesn't matter who you've got, the greatest agent, manager, whatever, all bets are off. There's nothing I can do once he gets up there, right, to make him better. I can't make the audience better.
No.
Right? I can only make sure that he gets there.
But there's a lot. You say that, but you know now I'm going to say, that a lot of things have to go right so that when we do get up on stage, we can do what we're supposed to do. And simple as it sounds, just for our audience listening and viewing, I wish, when I first met Russell and Clayton, I wish I had a Clayton in my life. Because the little things that go wrong all the time, that drain the energy out of you.
Yes.
So by the time you get on stage, you're at 60%, 50% of your capacity. Because somebody forgot to put a bottle of water. It can be that simple. But you're going to be on stage for an hour, 2 hours. These are the things that have to be taken care of.
Yeah, we create
and much bigger things. I just said the simplest thing.
No, but even those simple things, like you have to focus on the task at hand.
Right.
So we create an environment around him where he doesn't have to think about that. He gets out of the car, walks backstage, sits around for a little bit, has something to eat maybe, and then goes up on stage. He doesn't have to worry about anything. And I can't take that single-handedly. That is not me. That is, we have a production team around us. We have a production manager. We've got other people that work with us who help facilitate that. And I've got to give them a shout out, because without them, we could not do what we do.
Right.
My production manager, Q, as I say, when we're on tour, I could not be there. But if he's not there, we can't do the show. There's only two really important people. It's my production manager and my brother.
Yeah.
Right? And if those are the two things. If I'm not there, the show will continue.
Right.
And so we have a lot of good people who make sure that everything runs properly.
Well, I am glad that you said the show will not continue without Russell, because some version of this I live with in my life, where my mother-in-law tells everybody she doesn't even need to show up. My son can do the show. She literally tells everybody that he knows all the jokes. He can just get up there. He doesn't do it to save her.
He is a lovely guy, your husband.
Oh, of course. Everybody loves him.
I love that guy.
Yeah. He's done nothing. The bar is so low for like a husband that he just sits there. As long as he's not beating me up, he's husband of the year.
He's not leaving marks anyway. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So your production team, which obviously is the best in the business, and you were a big part of putting that team together.
I was, yeah. I mean, we realized...
And keeping the team together.
Keeping the team together, but we've got the greatest guys. They're just absolutely fantastic. And one of the reasons that there's two things that we have. One is security and the other is the production guys. And the production guys exist because I was going into these bigger and bigger venues and arenas, and they were saying, well, what about this? And I'm like, well, move that thing towards that thing. I didn't know any of the terminology. Right? I'd like a thing over here, and I'd like a thing over there.
Over there, right.
So I needed someone.
True.
You need someone who speaks the language of the teamsters,
right.
of the lighting, of the sound people, right?
Yeah.
You know, the spec on the microphone, the spec on the monitor, the spec on the lights, who can do it without saying the thing with the guy with the thing. Right. So that was one of the first things, and then we had security guys from early days because of our bad tempers.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because the first time we went to LA and we were traveling around, a couple of times guys tried to get in our face, Indian guys.
Oh,
really? Drunk Indian guys. Yeah, drunk Indian guys. And so, just our temperament was such like...
You guys are big, tall guys.
Well, I'm not that tall, I'm just big.
No, but Russell too, he's a big, tall guy.
But that's fine. But these guys get a little liquid courage in them.
Oh, yeah.
And... you live in America, I live in Canada, but you know how litigious America is,
right?
Yeah. So if anything happens, we're into a lawsuit, we're into settlements, we're into all kinds of crap. And the big talk at that time was how much money we were making and how much money he was making. So, we had to get buffers.
Right.
And that's why we started having guys with us, because we just needed buffers.
Right.
Not because we were in any great danger.
Right.
We just needed someone to go, we need to separate ourselves from the situation. Because again, he's my little brother. Somebody steps to my little brother, I can't not intercede. And he's the same way. If somebody steps to me, he can't not intercede. My little brother is my little brother and my big brother all in one. Right. He's two people to me.
And are you both to him?
I definitely his big brother. And yes, I think there is that element.
In some way.
In some way, yeah. We are the same to each other.
Right.
Right? He's my little brother and my big brother. And I'm his big brother and his little brother at the same time. So he also does feel a protective thing towards me. He feels an obligation towards me. I know that, right? But definitely we have this kind of thing. And as I said in his wedding speech, the speech I gave at his wedding, I said, I feel safe when I'm with him, and I worry when I'm not with him, right? So there's a feeling of safety when we're together,
Right.
right? I definitely feel safe when I'm with him.
And does he feel safe when you're with him?
I would hope so.
Yeah, no,
I
I'm
would hope
sure.
so.
It feels like
I would
that.
hope so.
Now
I
that
think-
I travel with them a little bit.
Yeah,
I
and
know,
also,
yeah.
you know, you're out in the world traveling
Yeah,
now
yeah.
too on tour. And you know, you can have that sort of, if you don't have somebody with you or you don't have, if you're just out there alone, I mean, it's not even a physical safety thing. You're a performer.
Yeah.
You want to know you're walking into a safe building, a safe environment, an
Yeah.
environment where you can shine,
Yeah.
right? And that's also a measure of safety. It's not about physical safety or you're going to get into conflict with someone. It's about allowing the person to be relaxed and calm and do what they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also sort of a safety thing.
But if you had to attribute your successful partnership to one or two secret sauces, what would it be? Like, what is it that made you guys successful? You started, you kept going, but 20 years is a long time.
It is.
And show business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And old. We're old men, right? I'm going to be 60 this year. You know, we're not like young guys who, you know, and you get cranky, you get short-tempered, you just get a little crotchety in your old age, and that we're seeing as well.
Yeah. But what was it? It was just a feeling that it's two against the world. Was it something your parents said to you? It's what you saw, but your parents being so close to the two of them?
I just think it's instinctive. I just think it's just something we do. I'm going to have to cut around this, but
Yeah.
go back to the original question. What was the original question you asked me?
What was it that made you guys successful for 20? Is there a secret sauce that, Zarna, because of this was our North Star?
I think it was, well, number one, the reason that our relationship works is because we're not competing.
Right.
Okay. So
Okay,
if you talk to
that's
a lot,
important.
That's really important in the nature of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not competing. So what that means is I'm not looking to be the center of attention. Just imagine if he's the star of the show and he comes
Right.
backstage, right?
Right.
And he's got the star power. Everyone's like, oh my God, it's him type of thing.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, like, look at me. That's not me.
Right.
Okay. Because then he's going to be like, what's my brother doing? Like,
Yeah.
what is he doing over there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm not trying to steal his thunder. I want him to shine. I'm happy to be in the background. I'm not competing about money. If he does well, I do well. I live a lifestyle that I never imagined I would live.
Right.
Okay, I never imagined my world as it exists right now. I never could have dreamed of such a thing. So, what do I have to be mad at?
Right.
Right? Like, if he's successful, I'm successful, and my life is so much better than I ever imagined it could be.
But that's a level of contentment you don't see in anybody.
I think it's just sort of being old. I think I'm old.
But you've been at it for a long time. You
Yeah.
did it when you were 40 and
Yeah.
right, you could have been like, you know what, maybe I should be getting paid $2 million for something. For, I don't know, whatever he got paid for.
Yeah, no, it's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
I've got nothing to complain about.
No, I say this because I'm telling you, as a parent, we are all trying to figure out how to keep our kids together. And you guys have done, I don't know any other comedy team like this. Is there anybody else?
There was Dane Cook and his brother, which is a really bad example because his brother stole from him.
Oh, no.
So that's not a great example.
It didn't end well, I'm guessing.
No, it didn't end well at all.
Yeah.
You've got Tony Rock and Chris Rock. They've got a thing, and there are these sibling relationships out there. I think maybe we are unique in that.
I don't know anybody else. And to keep it going through the years, and I see you now, we're in Calgary together. They're constantly calling and texting each other. It's crazy. It's actually a little retro because I have kids who would never pick up like a voice call. But you guys voice call and FaceTime each other and stuff.
I hate FaceTime. He loves FaceTime.
He's on FaceTime all day long.
It's so invasive. Yeah. Oh my God, I hate it. And when he's with somebody famous, he'll do, hey, look who I'm with. And I'll do this. And I have to make a pained face like, hey. Right? I hate FaceTime.
Yeah.
And him and my mom both love FaceTime.
Yeah.
Most of our day communicating back and forth is sending rainbows to each other.
What does that mean?
You're gay.
Okay.
He'll send me something, or he'll say something to me, and I'll just send him the rainbow back to him. So there's a lot of you're gay.
Do you ever worry that
and we also use the R word on each other too.
Well,
So,
It was okay until recently.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're basically communicating like 14-year-olds. That's what we're doing.
Do you ever worry, what if things fall apart between you two? What will you do? Do you worry about that?
No,
because you've invested so much in his career.
Yeah, but I'm also at an age where I do think about winding down. I do think about my family. My wife has some health things that's also on my mind. So, if that was to happen, then I would be okay. I'm fine financially. I'm fine, right? I've
How
built
rich are these guys?
not that rich.
Yeah.
No. That's not it at all. No, I
Yeah.
just I lead a very conservative lifestyle.
No, I know.
Right?
You're literally emanating contentment. I don't know if you're seeing it for yourself, but like, I don't know how many people in any circumstance, I don't even know billionaires who would be like, what? I could never have imagined this. This is great. It's just not a
Yeah.
thing people say anymore.
Well, your husband is saying it.
Oh, my husband.
Look
of
at you
course.
talk about emanating contentment.
Okay, we're not
That
gonna.
man
yeah,
is like a Buddha. He is just, you know
Is
what?
my mother-in-law sending you a check for this, like for plugging my husband?
He
in?
is. Even I feel calmer. I feel like, oh, he's here. I wish he was here right now.
Yeah, oh, of course. This is the story of my life. I'm working. I took 2 flights. I sat at an airport for hours and hours. My husband's at home watching Netflix for the 19th hour today, and everybody's like, but it's him. Sorry to digress.
But he emanates that.
Yeah.
He definitely does.
But you do too, and I believe that you play a big role in keeping your brother calm through the ups, and the downs.
he senses my nervousness when I have it. Like
Yeah.
if we're backstage at a show, he can sense when I'm feeling nervous about something.
So what would make you nervous?
If I pick up on his nervousness. So sometimes if he hasn't been on stage for a while,
Yeah.
I know that he's feeling a little bit nervous about what's about to happen. He's not feeling comfortable with material, or I know his personal life very well, so I know if he's dealing with some really bad stuff. And believe
Sounds
me,
like that might have been
no, but really, I mean,
fair amount.
basically adult problems.
Yeah.
If he's dealing with stuff, and I'm aware of that,
Yeah.
I internalize that. So then I can kind of feel, if my brother's not happy, I'm not happy.
Right.
Okay, or as they say about your children, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. Now I know he's not my child, but if my brother's not happy, I can't be happy.
Right.
Right. So we pick up on each other's type of things.
So tell me, as we wrap up this episode, what's the one tip you would give to a family where you have siblings who are wanting to create something together, build something together? What's the one tip you would have? Because I have my tip. I have my tip ready because
I would like to hear your tip.
You want to hear my tip?
Yeah, I want to hear your
The
tip.
number one tip I have for my own kids, and I want them to build big things, is to remember that mom owns most of it. Mom owns 80% of it. You two are fighting for the remaining 10. Go make it happen, kids. Keep mom in the middle. You'll be fine. What's your tip?
Well, mine's not so mercenary as the ownership part. I think that in any sort of business enterprise, something that you're building, you have to play off each other's strengths.
Right.
Okay. So, if like in the case of my brother and myself, he's outgoing, gregarious, I'm more reserved, I'm in the background, I'm more analytical, and that's how it works together, right? I don't have a real pro tip like you do. Yours is much better than mine.
Well, I mean,
right?
Not everybody can be.
No, I mean, there's only one. Look at this. And shut up.
Oh, okay. I knew it was coming. Shut up.
Shut up. Why do I always mess up his name?
No.
But yeah, I mean, that to me would be the main thing, is understanding the strengths and weaknesses of each other and working off of that so that you're compensating for the other one.
Do you think, in reflecting, he would be as successful as he was without you? You've already said you don't think you would have the life that you have.
I wouldn't have the life that I have.
That you have.
But
would he have the life that he has?
I think he would. I think he
No,
would.
he wouldn't.
No, he would.
No, he wouldn't.
would. Because his
I'm gonna
talent
say
is
it 'cause
it's a
he's
natural
being
thing.
nice.
I cannot, first of all, he is who he is with or without me. Okay? And his comedy is, I don't do anything about his comedy. I don't make him funnier. Right? So he would have been successful with or without me. I cannot take that sort of like, oh, it's because of me. It's also not part of my psyche to sort of say, yeah, my brother's who he is because of me.
Right.
That's definitely not the case. He would have still been successful. He would have had another manager. He would have things I think would have unfolded as they were meant to.
I don't think so. I'm just going to step in here and I'll say this to my audience now as we wrap up the show that it is very hard, whether you're a good comic or not, and I like to believe I have some jokes, but so much time and energy is lost in fixing the little things and making sure everything is right in your world before you get up on stage. And I'm constantly struggling with him, and the level of envy I have for you and your brother. It's not the car, it's not the private jet, even though you had to sit with your neck cranked this way. I don't even want that. It's the bond that you two have. I wanted to do this episode so badly because my two boys also watch out for each other, but I'm constantly pained by how much the older one sacrifices for the little one. It's the unspoken sacrifice that goes on all the time, because if the two of them argue, we're always like, give it to your little brother. Do you know what I'm talking about, right? So as a mother, you're watching this constantly, and I'm now watching an adult version of it and fascinated. And I want to know what everybody thinks who's watching. We want to hear your experiences. Usually we end our episode with a segment called Good Grades with Gargs, where we assign each other a grade for each other's performance. Because nothing in the Garg universe ends without a grade sheet and a report card. So we're going to give each other a grade for how we did. And you, our audience, our listeners, are going to give us in your comments your grades of how we think we did, what you thought of this episode. Do you have a sibling that you worked with, you wanted to work with? Tell us everything, we want to hear. So do you want to assign me my grade first, or should I go first?
You go first.
I go first. Yeah. You're getting an F. You getting an F.
See?
Because no matter what I did, it was, but shalab. It was going well until you mentioned my husband.
He's the best.
Yeah.
He's the best. He gets an A+ for this episode.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what we
life?
do. Yeah, we get a mail-in grade for him.
Do you see my life? He has to do nothing, including not even show up.
Yeah. You can get a did not test or did not show
applicable.
Up. Not applicable. You get an NA, but he's getting an A+.
Yeah.
Because he's the man behind it.
But I hope you enjoyed this.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.
No.
It's strange for me to talk about myself. Like I said, it's weird for me.
Yeah.
To sort of do anything about myself because it's just weird. Yeah.
Listen, you gave a lot of flowers to the production team. You gave flowers to your brother for being a phenomenal comic. And I know how strongly your brother feels for you. But still, I want you to know, and I want everybody who's watching to know, that having a sibling who stayed and built this thing with his more famous sibling, it's everything. I don't think he could become who he became without you. He would be very successful, probably, but not to the level that you were able to go together, and you got to do it together. Isn't that right?
It was fantastic.
Isn't that like a victory right there? Yeah. Is that you weren't like reading about it in the newspapers. This is it, people. My kids, my two boys, the girl can do whatever, but my two boys, I really hope you are watching, Bridge and Veer, and I hope all your boys are watching. Girls too, get in it, guys. Work with your families, make big things happen, and remember that the brand is always family. Right?
And Shalom. I miss him.
Thank you.